Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about something that affects those of us who shoot JPEG more so than it affects those who shoot RAW. And I'm going to explain that in a second. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the setting on your camera where you can select the picture style. Now, why did I say it affects us that shoots JPEG more so than those who shoot RAW? And does it actually affect those that shoot RAW? Well, this is taken right from the manufacturer's websites, what they say. The picture style is embedded in the RAW file data. The picture style does affect the JPEG preview or the preview on your camera screen when you're looking at the picture that you've taken. It does not alter the raw image unless you tell it to do so. So what does all that mean? When you're shooting the raw file with the picture style set to whatever you have it set with, what you see on the viewfinder at the back of the camera will be directly affected by whatever the picture style is. Now that's not a big deal unless you have it set in something really bizarre, like you have it set in monochrome. So the picture on the back of your camera screen, the viewfinder, whatever it is that you're looking through, depending upon your camera, will take that into effect when it is viewing the image that you've taken. And I've been told by a number of sources that when you open up the raw data, that is not applied to the raw data unless you tell the raw program when it's processing the file to take the data that's embedded and to apply that. Now, again, I don't shoot a ton of RAW. I shoot RAW once in a while. When I edit them, I do my RAWs manually. I do not go in and tell it to batch process my RAW files because I find that's just counter to why I'm shooting in RAW to begin with. After all, we don't need that much bigger files than we're getting in today's cameras. So that's not a huge benefit for RAW. But if you're going in there for adjusting the colors, the contrast, the saturation, all the other stuff, the details and everything, why would you just go in and tell it to auto process all your pictures at one setting and be done with it? I just don't do that. So the RAW processing program that I use, I go in and I manually set everything so that I get the picture I want when I shoot RAW. But like I said, I've been told by different sources, and I've had several of my customers come in and tell me that they think that was happening with theirs when they went in and ran a batch process, that all it did was take the information that was embedded in that file and applied it to what it processed. So it does affect what you see on the back of the camera, and it does affect if you run this batch processing from what I've been told, but it does not directly, specifically affect the raw file in any way, shape, or form. Unlike some other settings on your camera will adjust the raw file, this one does not. So what are your picture styles and why would you want to change them, and do you have to change them? Well, the picture styles applies a whole bunch of information when each picture is taken. Now, it applies basic stuff, really does. It applies sharpness, saturation. It changes the vibrancy of the image. It changes things with the image that will make it look better if you select the right picture style. Now, when you buy your camera, when you open up your camera, when you take it out of the box, put in a battery, put in a card, it's going to be set to auto. So that's your first picture style that you have to use, choose, select. Now, I don't like auto. What auto does is it sharpens the picture a little bit, but because it's auto, it changes by using the camera's built-in data for different scenes and so on and so forth to change the vibrancy, to change the colors, to change the saturation, to change things with the image that will make it look different. Now, the problem with this is it'll give you a good picture. Don't get me wrong. It gives you a good picture. It doesn't really change it hugely. But here's the problem. Anything in auto is not consistent, and that's the big problem that many people have in photography. They shoot pictures over and over and over again. They can't understand why the pictures look different every time they shoot a picture. And having your picture style set to auto is an issue because it's going to change it. Now, is it going to change it a lot? It can. Generally, if it's the same scene and you're shooting it over and over and over again, it shouldn't change it dramatically. You shouldn't go from having a light blue dress to a Smurf blue dress. But why would you want to leave it set in that setting if you're using JPEGs or if you're using RAWs that are just batch processing and it's applying this setting? Why would you want to do that? And you're just going to have issues with it. It's just not worth it. To me, it's one of these things that just change it. Get off of there. Be smart and use something different so that the camera's not adjusting, so that you don't have control of it and the camera's doing everything for you. Take it off of there. All right, the next mode. The next mode is standard. Now, standard, again, it sharpens the image and it gives the image a little bit more saturation. Now, for some things, this isn't bad. For scenery, for animals, it's not bad. For some things, the more saturation is not what you want. And this is, again, an area with a lot of people that they come in here asking, why does their picture look like this? And I have to explain to them, well, you took it this way. And they say, well, I don't remember taking it this way. Well, it's how your camera is set. I use standard more so than I would ever use auto. But standard is still one of these modes that is going to change the look of the image. It's going to sharpen it a bit more than other modes or other picture styles, and it's going to saturate it a bit more. So for overall images, fine, great, use it. If you're shooting a lot of people, if you're shooting a lot of images that you want very color specific, don't select the standard. There are better modes. Now the next mode is portrait mode. Just what you might think. It's designed for taking pictures of people. So what does it do? It takes your sharpness down a little bit less than what it would in the standard mode. A little bit less than in the auto mode. It takes it down because skin tone overly sharpened just doesn't look good. You start seeing acne. You start seeing wrinkles. You start seeing creases in the skin. It's just not a good mode for making people look the best. It also, in portrait modes, takes your saturation level down a little bit. Takes the color down a touch. So you're not getting the red lobster look. You're not getting the blue Smurf look. You're not getting the green skin look. Again, people come in, they complain. Why do my kids look jaundiced? They're not jaundiced. Well, that's the setting that you have for picture styles selected on your camera. You've selected that so they look that. That's what you've done. That's what the camera's doing. Away you go. Now, I should throw in here before I go any further, can you adjust some of this out when editing? You can. But again, why should you have to go in and fix something if you can just set it correctly in the first place? Okay, the next picture style I want to talk about is landscape. Now, as soon as I say landscape, you're probably thinking in your mind, oh, blues and greens. In the old days, back when I was a youngster in the photography business, this would be the Fuji chrome look of pictures. And I know Canon's not promoting Fuji and Nikon's not promoting Fuji, but that was the thing that comes to mind with me when I think of landscape mode. It gives you deeper, more enhanced blues and greens. The sharpness is bumped up a little bit, so everything's a little bit sharper. It just looks, I want to say nicer, but it looks more what a landscape picture, what most people think a landscape picture is going to look like. Now, the problem with using the different picture styles in the wrong situations is they're going to look different. So if you used portrait mode and you shot landscapes, it's not going to destroy the picture, but it is going to change it. If you use landscape when you're shooting people, it's not going to destroy the picture, but it is going to change it. In portrait mode, you're not going to get the saturated, enhanced blues and greens and reds and those colors. In landscape mode, you're going to get more sharpness. So if you're photographing people, they're going to be a little bit more enhanced in colors and they're going to be sharper. So again, it's not going to destroy it, but it is going to change things. And landscape mode is made for You got it. Landscapes. All right, the next one. And I'm just using this from what's on my cameras. I'm not going into all of them. There's many, many, many more. The next one is neutral. Pretty straightforward. Neutral is neutral. It's not going in and enhancing anything. It's not going in and overly sharpening anything. It's not going in and adding contrast to stuff. It's not going in to add fine details. It's not doing any of that. It's keeping it to the neutral tones. Now, the good thing about doing this is in neutral tones, it's not going to do anything that you're going to have to go and try to fix. It's going to keep it more what you see is what you get. The problem here is that it's not going to give you those vibrant colors, so you're going to have to go in and enhance them, and it may not have captured it to begin with. Now, again, if you're using RAW, you can go to the RAW files and you can use RAW and you can get the color that you want without having to worry whether it was captured or not. But if you like shooting JPEGs, and I've talked about that in many videos, if you like shooting JPEGs and that works for you, neutral will get you a neutral image. It won't blow out wedding dresses. It won't blow out detail in skin. It won't overly sharpen. It doesn't do anything. It's more neutral. Neutral is neutral. The next is faithful. Now, what's the difference between neutral and faithful? I think they just wanted to throw in something else to say, well, hey, we can make this even more impressive if we say faithful over neutral. Faithful is supposed to give you a little bit more of what you'll actually see with your eyes. So, as an example, and this is just one I'm pulling out of the air, if you're shooting a wedding dress, you may see a little blown out areas in a wedding dress with faithful, whereas with neutral, you would see less of that. The issue is in faithful, you'll probably get a little bit more enhanced colors than what you would see in neutral. Faithful is supposed to be more what you would see in a daylight setting. It's supposed to be faithful. It's supposed to be what your eyes would see. I hear a lot of people say that faithful is what you use when you're really concerned about color accuracy, when you're taking a picture and when then you're sending it to print. Faithful will give you those true to life colors. Again, big difference between neutral and faithful, probably less than what the manufacturers would like you to think, but they're impressed with all they're saying. So faithful gives you more faithful colors. All right, the next one and the last one that's going to be on most cameras is monochrome. Now, this is where you'll actually notice if you're shooting in RAW even, when you shoot a picture and you've got your picture style set to monochrome, you're going to notice that all of a sudden your viewfinder or your screen on the back is going to show you exactly what you're shooting. So if you're even shooting in RAW and you have your picture style set to monochrome, you're going to see the preview image on the back of your camera go to monochrome because guess what? It's monochrome. So that's what the camera will show you on the back. It can make it a little difficult if you're shooting color pictures to really see the color in that if you have it set to monochrome. But monochrome is black and white. Now, I have another video about black and white. There are different ways of doing black and white. You can use it in camera to shoot it, and it's fun to do. I'm actually going to do a video probably early next year about shooting black and white on your camera. It's a fun project to do for a day, 2 days, 3 days. But I don't recommend, if you want to shoot black and white, I don't recommend that you use that setting on your camera all the time, but it's fun to play with. The biggest issue about all the settings, but especially about monochrome, is the following. If you shoot in monochrome, or if you shoot in other picture styles, and you're shooting in JPEG, well, if you shoot in monochrome, you don't have color data to go back and bring out if you're shooting in JPEG. In RAW, sure, you can do that. But if you shoot in monochrome, you got monochrome. If you shoot in other styles, you're going to have to go in and fix it. And some things cannot be undone easily. So if you set something, you may not be able to undo it as easy as you think. Now, a little funny story here. A number of years ago, I was teaching a student. We were talking about this. And on her camera, she had a setting called Vivid. And vivid is just what you would think it stands for. It made the pictures vivid. It made the greens green. It made the blues blues, the reds red. And I told her, beware, don't use that. She went, oh, okay. About 6 months later, she came in, and her husband had just went on a tour over to Holland, and they went to the Tulip Festival, and they went and took a bunch of pictures and enjoyed a couple weeks at this Tulip Festival and touring and had a great time. When they were at the Tulip Festival, she remembered the vivid setting, and she decided to try some pictures in vivid. So she shot a bunch of pictures in vivid. And I got to say, they were amazing. They were great. They were fabulous. It looked like if you hit the picture that you would get covered in color. That's how vivid it was. The yellows were yellow, the reds were reds, the greens were greens, the blues were blues. Oh, it was just amazing. And then she started laughing. And then she pulled up a picture of her husband in the tulip field. And all I can say is this. Her husband looked like he was a well-cooked lobster. He was redder than red. And she laughed and laughed and laughed. And she says, now I know why you told me not to use that. Because all the pictures I shot of my husband, all the pictures my husband shot of me, or that we had somebody else shoot of the two of us, when I had the vivid setting on, which I didn't notice for a whole day, we looked like we are lobsters. Our blue coats looked blue. Everything was just blowing out. So you got to be careful in picture styles that you're not destroying the pictures by it. Now, I know it's been a long video, but a couple more things. On many cameras, you have custom settings that you can go in and set. If you're shooting a lot of JPEGs, if you notice your camera or your picture taking style is different than what your settings will allow you, you can go in and make your own picture style custom settings. I do this a lot. I do it for in my studio. I do it for when I'm shooting my wildlife. I like my sharpness a little bit more than what the camera would have. Just many different things I go in and set for myself. Again, it works great. It works wonderful. It works in JPEG. It will work in RAW if you batch process. But if you're just manually processing in your RAW, it makes no difference. But it does work. So picture styles can really help you improve your pictures, can really change the way you take pictures, and it does work. So until next time, get out there, take some pictures, try different picture styles, make sure you set it back to the one you're comfortable with when you're done trying, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.